Okay, I'm gonna do one more recording here. We're just about on the way out. I want to show you guys some sort of finishing polish that you can do to these scenes. So I've got the animation working, and what I want to do here is take a null object and connect this entire TV screen with that null object so that we can do some big giant group layer movement with it. So let me go ahead and do a quick RAM preview for everybody to be able to see. So we got all our objects growing in. We got the eyeball. That's surprising, pretty interesting. Our walls feel good. I like the way the front of the monitors arriving, that black portion. And then we've got our lockup right at the very end here. So there it is. Our RAM preview is just completed. Starting to play through. Looking good. Here we go, and then it's going to be done. So what I want to happen here is I'm going to just go ahead and create a big new null object. Okay. Let's turn it to yellow. And from there, I'm going to recenter my anchor point by holding Control and double clicking on that icon. And let's go back over to our move tool. So any objects that we have that are attached to another null, I'm going to grab those first and just bring those up so that they are listening. The nulls that were driving things in our scene previously are now going to be listening to this main kind of mega null that I'm creating right at the very end, for a lack of a better term. I'm getting a little bit of lag here as I'm trying to scroll up and get to it. Come on, buddy, you're almost there. 1, 2, 3, and there it is. All right. Now it's attached. That's great. And now I can start grabbing a lot of these other layers that are not connected to nulls at all. And let's drag it and select those guys. So I want everything to be attached to null 3. I know it looks a little bit complicated. There we go, null 3, and then we've got these guys down at the base. We don't need to select our very bottom background layer. Let's get this thing to scroll up. There it goes. Just holding it up at the top, and that'll cause it to scroll all the way up. Okay, cool. So you've seen what the whole video looks like. So now here's just a little bit of polish so that I can move all those layers all at once. Now, if anything starts to really kind of come together, once our TV is completed. All right, so what I want is, as this part comes in, there we go. I want to add some shake to it. So transform, position, and we're going to get that position going back. Let's mess with the rotation as well. Same deal, rotation. Keep it in the same spot, and just in the middle here, we want to rotate the TV up just a little bit. Get that guy out of there. And now I'm going to grab those keyframes, push them forward just a little bit. And since we're working on the full timeline, I want to collapse that, and odds are that I can probably pull these keyframes in just a little bit closer to themselves. All right, so let's get those guys in there. I want this to happen really, really fast, but if you've got any big movement that you need to do to your entire scene, this will work pretty well. So that's a good way to be able to take a whole bunch of layers with animation and everything else on them and use those nulls. There it goes. Jumps up just a little bit, and now the rest of it's going to arrive. Pretty good looking. And now we can see that that shadow that we had right from the very get-go, we know now where that needs to be at its full scale. All right. So, I think that's just going to grow a little bit in there. Maybe it won't be overly noticeable. You can see that I've got a lot of layers that aren't continuing all the way through as I've manipulated stuff. So please, when you're wrapping up your files and you go to export, that's what we're going to get into next here. I'm just pulling these down so that they're visible in the time slider the entire way. We don't want anything dropping out as we start to get to the 10-second mark. All right, see some of these little pieces that are starting to disappear. Making sure not to move any of those layers around, and everything's looking pretty good for me. So let's go in and let's talk about exporting from After Effects. So we've got my full render region pulled all the way across. So I'm going to be rendering out my entire 10 seconds, and then I'm going to go to Composition and add to Media Encoder. While that's opening up, let's go ahead and hit save on the project. Always a good idea before you try to export. And the media encoder might take a second to be able to open up since we're doing the screen recording as well. I hope these couple videos have been useful for you guys. The media encoder is really what Adobe's been switching over to export out their media files. This is where we're going to get the MP4 from. There are some times within After Effects that we need to go into layer. So under composition, you can go to add to render queue, but also under composition, you've got save frame as. So if you need to do a lockup and then go in and paint something, or you need to be able to, have it match later on within your timeline, and it's too many layers to be able to move around, save frame as can be really useful, but it's a little bit complicated to be able to look at that. All right, I'm going to pause it while the media player is opening up. Okay, so now that Media Encoder is opened up, it's a very simple thing. We're going to be looking for it defaults to H.264. That's an excellent media encoder. We're going to click on where their file path is and where this is going to be saving out as. All right, and now we've got our computer screen that we're going to render. So let's give it a project 1. Object assembly, and then a date, 8/5/22. That's a really good naming convention, just to be able to use in the future. So what it is, who did it, so I can tell whose project is what, and then just give it a date at the end there. And then from there, it's going to be ready. We're going to hit this green button and hit play, and we're going to get our file out. The media encoder is a great spot sometimes when you have really large files to actually, I just thought of something else I want to show you guys. I'm so sorry, but you'll be able to see a preview window down there. Let's jump back into After Effects real quick. This is kind of a cool last minute polish thing as well. So with all these layers, right now they are super, super clean because they're all in Adobe, coming from Adobe Illustrator. But we have the option within After Effects to be able to turn on something called motion blur. There it is. So it's this little couple balls that appear within this scene. We'll also be able to create 3D layers from here, but that's going to happen later on. And then motion blur has now been turned on by default within the shot. So this is just going to give us it's going to take longer for the playback to actually occur, but we can see that a lot of those layers are starting to become really, really blurry as they're arriving within the scene, and it's just going to give us kind of a cool effect overall. So I'd recommend turning on motion blur when you actually go to create these. Now I'm going to add this guy back to Media Encoder, Composition, add to Adobe Media Encoder. Yep, you can see that all these objects that are coming in now have a little bit of blur to them, and it looks just a little bit more realistic and helps our eyes, for especially some of these really quick moving objects that we're going to be creating. So I'm going to upload the final for this one to YouTube and have that at the bottom of these different tutorials, a link to it for you guys to be able to view. I hope this was all useful, and I can't wait to see what kind of creativity you're able to bring to these projects. Make it interesting for us to watch, and good luck.